Good afternoon, Chair and the participants. We are going to present the analysis of trade in production, trade, economic contribution of the fisheries and aquaculture in CRFM member states. Every year, CRFM is producing a statistical yearbook in which the member states of CRFM, they used to provide the catch information, marine catch information and aquaculture production information, and that used to be presented in the CRFM yearbook. In this paper, we wanted to understand the performance of the fisheries sector as a whole and the aquaculture in the CRFM member state. And also, as CARICOM is having an objective to reduce the food import bill by 25%, that also that also applies to fisheries sector. So fisheries sector food import bill should also be reduced at least by 25% by 2025. So we want to understand what is the present status of export and import trade in the CRFM member states. The data has been compiled from the CRFM statistical report. The export and import data sets were taken from market database of International Trade Center. Trend analysis, growth rate, graphical presentations were made using our software. If you see the trend in marine capture production, and if we can take the base year as 2000, and if you see from 2000 to 2022, there is an increase in production trend. However, if you consider the last 4 to 5 years, you can see there is a declining trend of fish production and kind of little declining and more of stagnant marine fisheries production. That means we are not having much scope in terms of increasing the fishing production from marine sector, and the marine area has been affected by climate change, sargassum impacts, and many other anthropogenic activities. So which is also kind of putting a pressure on not increasing the fish production from the marine environment. And also some of the fish species have been affected by the various reasons. It might be the fishing pressure, or might be the climate change, or might be the sargassum impact. If you see the growth rate, last 3 to 4 years, you can see there is a declining rate of growth. The growth rate was calculated based on the production of the lag year to the present year. So it is basically the production rate or the growth rate based on the previous year. So last 3 to 4 years, we are having a kind of negative growth. When we'll compare with all the member states, you can see there is a kind of stagnant in Anguilla, Antigua, Barbuda. However, there is a declining trend in terms of Guyana from 2000 to 2022, and also in TCI, you can see a declining trend. And Trinidad and Tobago kind of a stagnant. Grenada also last 4 to 5 years, it is kind of a declining trend. So either it is kind of a stagnant or more of a declining trend. And this is the growth rate of each member countries from 2000 to 2022 based on the previous year production, the present year production based on the previous year production. So I will request all the member countries to go through their respective countries. In terms of aquaculture production, till 2000 to 2009 and 10, there was a kind of a increasing trend in aquaculture production, and up to 2010, the aquaculture production is continuously reducing. The major aquaculture species, if I'm not wrong, it is the Peneus venami, and Peneus venami has affected a lot because of early mortality syndrome. Though the farmers, they are using the specific pathogen-free seeds, still there is a kind of a problem in terms of production, which has affected the total aquaculture production. So we have to think the alternative which can support us in terms of production. Also the alternative technologies like biofloc technology might be another option, and aquaponics can be other options which can be implemented in many of our member states, because most of the member states are small island developing countries, and we are having a problem of land, we are having a problem of water. So with the limited land and limited water, how to increase the aquaculture production, we have to find out the strategies. And the rate of growth of aquaculture production in terms of present production with the lag year. And this is the aquaculture production by the different member countries. I don't want to explain all these things. If you see this slide explains about the import trend of fisheries product as a whole in the region. And you can see in terms of million US dollars, our import was around $100 million in 2000, and which has been increased to 350 million US dollars in 2022. And if you see the growth rate of import is kind of increasing throughout the years. In terms, this is the import trend by the member countries. When we'll see the export trend, either it is, we can say it is kind of more of a stagnant. I will say it is more of a stagnant. There is not much increase in our export trade. In terms of values, it is around moving around 250 to 300 million US dollars. If you see the difference between the import and export, how much we are importing and how much we are exporting, whether our import is more or our export is more. If you see from 2000 to 2010, 2012, till 2012, we are having a higher export in comparison to import. That's why it is showing a negative values. So our export was more in comparison to our import till 2012, and 2012 onwards, it is kind of our import is showing a kind of increasing, and our export is kind of stagnant. So the trend is showing an increasing value if you see the import minus export in the whole region. And if you go to the countries like Suriname, Belize, Guyana, and St. Vincent at this moment, and Bahamas, these 4-5 countries is showing a good indication that their export is quite high in comparison to their import. But however, if you see the Trinidad, Barbados, Dominica, Jamaica, in these countries, our import is more in comparison to our exports. So in conclusion, declining trend in aquaculture production and slightly declining or stagnant in marine fisheries due to various reasons. And there is an increasing trend in import and slightly declining, or you can say stagnant in terms of export. And we know that there is a scope of increasing aquaculture production. Our future work will be, we want to assess the overall assessment of the economic important fisheries, like we will take some of the important economic fisheries and we'll assess what is the status of the particular species or particular fisheries throughout the region, how they are performing. Then development of management approaches of fish stocks to provide sustainable livelihood. And the recommendation is we'll give more emphasis on the data collection and the assessment of economical important fisheries, and also strategies for development of aquaculture production. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pranaya. Peter, you have your hand raised, so you can go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much. Excellent presentation, Pranaya. I was curious. The trend that you showed in import and export was mainly in terms of dollar value.
Right.
But I'm wondering to what extent that increase. I'm not doubting, I'm just curious. Is an artifact of the increased unit prices as opposed to actual weights. In other words, are we importing more by weight, or is it that the price of the imported product is going up, and so that trend we're seeing, which is a dollar value trend rather than a weight trend? I'm just curious.
The data has been taken from the international trade center value. So the values, the data was in terms of values, not in terms of weight. So at this moment, it is very difficult for me to say, but I can check whether what is the in terms of value we are importing, and it is only because of the values in US dollars, or practically we are importing more in terms of weight, the total export. So that
Yeah,
can
well-
be compared, but presently we have taken only the US dollar values and we have done the analysis.
Yeah, I saw that. I was just curious as to whether any consideration is given to look to see whether the weight issue is an important issue in looking at that. Okay, thanks anyhow.
Thanks, Peter. We'll look into that.
Just wanted to say you should look at the species too if the information is available, because sometimes there's a shift, yeah, in the species, and the species of fish, seafood, they vary so significantly that if you are able to find that data, you should also look at that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Milton. We'll look into that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. And